I'll be brief. We just spoke a bit about the future. I want to talk about now. We continue to look for efficiencies in our operation. I conducted a study of our structure fire responses in 2012 and determined that of the 154 responses we did, about 54% of those were false alarms or incidents that could be handled by one or two apparatus on scene. And so essentially what we're doing 54% of the time is deploying our whole city, 6 pieces of equipment, going lights and siren through the streets. And so that presents an inherent risk to us. And so what I'd like to do is implement a tiered program, if you will. Through the dispatch center, the 911 calls will be filtered, and those dispatchers will determine if there are elements in there to trigger a full response of 4 engines, a ladder truck, and a battalion chief, or it's a slight smell of smoke. Can we send a reduced response? 2 engines, a ladder truck, and a battalion chief. It's a total of 10 people for the reduced response. And I think it's good for the fire department, it's good for the community. One of the additional benefits is that we haven't stripped the city. So if we've got a concurrent call, whether it's EMS or fire or some other haul risk, that we can deal with that.
Okay, so can you explain what the tier approach would be as far as if there was a structure fire, we'd be sending 3 instead of 5, is that my understanding? Absolutely
so. And once again, I get back to the dispatchers and the call takers, the information they get. Obviously, if someone calls and says, there's a fire in my living room, that's going to initiate a response of the full first alarm assignment. Conversely, if you get someone who calls and says, there's a slight smell of smoke, you know, I can't identify it, I can't see any fire, no explosions, the likelihood of that being a structure fire is much less, but we're still sending the 4 closest piece of equipment to that. In the event it happens that there's some hidden fire, we can battle it. There are safety nets built into that as well. For example, if we send 2 engines, a ladder truck, and a battalion chief to an odor investigation, and one of the pieces of apparatus pulls out of their station and sees a column of smoke in the air, automatically we're calling for that full alarm. Did I answer your question, Mr. Mayor?
Is this something that we need to implement as policy of the city council? This is here a trial program?
I think we'd like to try it for at least 3 or 4 months. This is more consistent with what most other departments do, a tiered response versus a universal response. And I think, as Bob had indicated, at the end of the day, we're not reducing our effectiveness, but we will, I think, reduce the possibility of not being able to respond to simultaneous fires, which are rare, but they do happen, and so we don't have all our resources tied up. And secondly, the single greatest danger in the fire department isn't actually at the fire scene, it's getting there in the form of accidents with the public, so we can reduce unnecessary emergency runs with all our equipment if we can tier our response.